Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining me today. I'm excited to have Colin here from the Canadian Marine Industries and Shipbuilding Association. Colin, why don't you introduce yourself and the organization for those who might not be familiar?
Good morning, Greg, and good morning, everyone. As Greg said, I'm Colin Cooke from the Canadian Marine Industries and Shipbuilding Association. We are an organization from coast to coast, almost to coast. We've got about 100 companies across Canada, and we represent those companies that build, maintain, equip, and ultimately recycle ships. And as I say, we've got the big guys, we've got two of the big yards, we've got a good number of the marine and maritime defense firms, we've got a tremendous number of ma-and-pa widget makers, and of course we've got the advanced tech companies like SSI, like Innova Marine, like Genoa Design, and companies such as that who are really leading the charge on the technological side of our industry.
What are some of the things that you've been working on this past year, kind of leading up to Workboat here?
So in a large part, it was this show. We've got all sorts of things that are on the go, but this one particular show was something else. So it was my first visit to Workboat was last year, and coming away from the show, it was, we've got to find ways to get more smaller Canadian companies into the show. Big firms such as SSI, such as Thornton Bearings across the way, firms such as that, such as you guys, have the ability to stand on your own 2 feet. You've got the contacts, you've got the connections, you've got the presence here. So what I was looking to be able to do is bring some of the smaller firms, the ma-and-pa widget makers, if you will, to give them a boost. And so we've set up a Team Canada booth. We've got 9 companies from 6 different provinces representing. We have some companies that are making things, some that are designing things, some that are supporting others. And pretty excited about being able to bring all these different companies to the show.
So what do you see as Canada's role? Where can we find our niche, and what's the best way these companies can really work more in the US and get these contacts?
So that's a fantastic question and an exciting one. And my job since I founded the organization about 5 years ago has been to try and break down those barriers that we have in Canada. You could be making the greatest thing since sliced bread in your region of Canada, and one region over, they've never heard of you. So what I've been trying to do is, first of all, break down those barriers, make sure that everyone across the country knows of each other. The next thing is, interestingly enough, making sure that the Government of Canada and the provinces and the various regional development agencies also know about each other and collaborate on events such as this. It was fascinating having that discussion with different government departments. They're all aware of the show, and they were all interested in doing something or getting feedback about it or whatever, but they weren't talking to each other. So another role for industry is actually to make sure that the Government of Canada and the provinces are all working towards the same objective, which is to make industry stronger and to create jobs, to create opportunities, to basically build up our sector. So that's all what has been going on. What I think is really exciting for the future is that increasingly companies across Canada are playing better together, more collaborative, more cooperative. And my dream is to be able to do a Team Canada anywhere in the world where we've got a whole cross-section of our industry and our sector who are able to go and present a solid face to wherever it is that we're visiting. The Finns, to be honest, the Finns do it best. You go and see a Team Finland and you end up with government types, you have politicians, and you have industry, and you cannot tell them apart. They're just Finns. They get the business, they go back and fight over it amongst themselves. I mean, they are business folks. But when they're out in the world, they're saying, bring the opportunities to Finland, and we'll look after you. That's what I want to see Canadians doing. I want to see us increasingly collaborating, working together, finding Canadian solutions that we can place all around the world.
What do you think is driving some of the change in Canada? You mentioned there's more of an attitude of collaboration and working together. What do you think is behind that?
Well, we have to give some credit where credit is due, and that's the National Shipbuilding Strategy has certainly reinvigorated our sector. There have always been firms that have continued to exist operate and be successful around the world, notwithstanding our lack of building ships in Canada. But now that we are, and now that there are tremendous spin-offs from that, I think that that's been the catalyst. That whole thing of rising tide floating all boats, it's debatable sometimes because not everybody can get into the NSS. That said, there is still so much more activity going on across the country, right across the country. It's exciting to see what's happening. There are more ships being repaired in Canada. There are more companies that are providing services and technologies and widgets for ships in Canada, but then increasingly internationally. So it's just a great time. It's an exciting time, and the more that we play nice in the sandbox together, the better it's going to be for all of us.
Coming back to the event, what's your take on it? What's your read on the pulse of this show this year?
It's funny. We were having this conversation a little earlier. It seems a little bit quieter to me, but that said, everybody is saying that the contacts that they're making have been solid. Really good people, good possibilities, good pathways to a successful result from the show. So that's the key indicator, right? You could have a show of 1 million people and not a single person who's actually interested. You could have a show of 100 people and 16 are interested. You want the quiet show with the 16 interested people. I get that sense that an awful lot of people are seeing that this year. So good quality, maybe not as much quantity, but that's just my guess.
And then looking ahead for next year, what are some of the things you're excited about?
So what I'm interested in doing is coming back to the show, but doing it in a fashion that gives opportunities to everybody. So this particular show, our Team Canada booth had 9 companies, 6 provinces. Very, very pleased with that. Next year, probably the same, maybe a little bit larger. But what I'm also looking to be able to do is provide floor walking programs. Do you need trade show training? Are you bringing some new person to your BD team who's never been to a show with 15,000 people and 1,000 exhibitors? They might appreciate a little bit of guidance as to how to approach this, and to be able to give them the confidence that when they go back, the boss is going to be happy with the results of that $5,000 investment of sending the person here from wherever they are. So there's things such as that. There's perhaps some webinar programs with U.S. Customs too, but I was thinking more Coast Guard. Let's see how we can get Canadian companies into the U.S. Coast Guard procurement chain, all sorts of things like that. So yes, we'll do another Team Canada booth, all things going as planned, but I'm also looking to be able to provide other value adds to either existing companies such as yours, Greg, and SSI, and helping your team in some fashion, but also for the individual Canadians who are just walking the floor and just experiencing the show.
And lastly, looking at the Canadian industry too, what do you see in store for the future there?
Continued growth, continued opportunities, lots of excitement. Our big yards are busy working on some pretty major projects. We have the interesting one of Davy having acquired the Helsinki shipyard. Don't know what that means, but it's going to be interesting. Our Great Lakes yards are super busy, and we've got all sorts of projects that, funding is going to be an interesting challenge, but the Navy is going to need to replace the Kingston class. The Navy is going to need something to do with a submarine program to replace our aging Victoria class. There are a lot of things that are percolating along. I don't see anything but exciting continued growth.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks so much for joining us today, Colin. I know we're excited to be a member of the Canadian shipbuilding community and excited to see what next year holds. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Greg. It's a pleasure chatting.